Shoot your arrows! Cooper Kupp plucks it out of the air and gives the Rams the lead. Robert Woods, touchdown! LA! Goff goes crashing into the end zone. Aaron Donald almost beat the football there. Corey Littleton, have yourself a day. Picked off. Marcus Peters coming off the edge. And Ryan will be wrapped up by Clay Matthews. Everett is stride! Wow!
Franklin Myers gets his hand down there.
Leto got a hand on it. Did he pick it? He did!
Racing down the sideline is a key to lead. Gurley for MVP! Touchdown LA!
Picked off by John Johnson.
Well, Dante Fowler, who is able to get to breathe. Greg Zuerlein sends the Rams to the Super Bowl! LA will play for the Lombardi!
Welcome back, guys, to another Downtown Rams podcast. It's episode 182. I'm your host, Jake Ellenbogen. Joining me is Alexis Kraft, and we're going to have Emory Hunt, the Czar of the Playbook. He is from Football Gameplan, and he is coming on to talk Rams and draft. So here is the podcast. Hope you guys enjoy. All right, guys, joining the show, we have the Czar of the Playbook himself, Emory Hunt from Football Gameplan. How's it going, man? Thank you so much for coming on.
Going fine. I appreciate you guys having me on.
Yeah, of course. We're really excited to get this thing going.
Yeah, it's funny. I don't know if you remember, Emory, but the last time you came on, I think a lot of Rams fans, started looking up your stuff because we talked MVP talk, right? And you said, well, the reason Todd Gurley did not win the MVP is because he doesn't throw the football. And I think a lot of people, that hit home. So you made yourself some fans for sure the last time. But I did want to just ask you real quick, while we go into kind of this offseason, we'll talk some draft and everything. What were your thoughts on the re-signing of Dante Fowler?
I'm a big fan of continuity because I think continuity is king. And it's so tough to have that in this era of the NFL. You see continuity in college football where guys are playing together for 3 to 4, sometimes even 5 years, and you see how a senior-laden team can have success in the NFL. You kind of hope you can keep guys together for at least 2 years. And the fact that you bring back a guy that started to come on a little bit later in the season, which is great, so he's trekking in the right direction, it's good to bring him back. And that takes away one less need, let's say, quote-unquote, early in the draft. And you want to reward guys for playing their best football when it counts the most, and you just hope that he can carry the back end of the season over to the front end this upcoming year.
Yeah, absolutely. Jake and I talked numerous times about re-signing him, and we're super excited to see that the Rams did. And he's a guy that we like a lot and who I'm excited to see what he does this next season for sure. And, so you talk about the re-signing of him, and then there's other guys who we didn't re-sign. Roger Saffold, Lamarcus Joyner, Mark Barron, and then a guy who most likely is not coming back, which is Ndamukong Suh. What do you think about the Rams' offseason losses so far? Any of those guys, were you shocked to see that the Rams didn't re-sign them, or were you, happy with the Rams' choice to maybe let those guys walk?
The one guy that I would have fought hard to bring back would have been Lamarcus Joyner. I just love the way he plays the game. He's a guy that I would consider to be positionless. He just plays defense. You want him out there. He always has the ball in his hands. He's making plays. And I just like him as a football player. But I understand they want to go in another direction, and he wants to get, big bucks, and I understand that. But that's the one guy I would have said, hey, make sure you keep this guy because he's a tremendous football player. And it's hard to find quote-unquote football players nowadays. Everybody's either a great athlete or they specialize in one thing. But Lamarcus Joyner could have played in any area, in my opinion.
Yeah, he was really the Swiss Army knife that they traded up to get. They traded up ahead of Baltimore to get him, back in the draft. And, he's a Fisher guy, and he, lasted through the first wave of the purge. And then they end up giving him the franchise tag, which surprised some people. But, he was a top 5 safety, in my opinion, last year. This year, I felt like he struggled a little bit. And I think really John Johnson's emergence kind of made them more prone to they like the guys that they have, Marquis Christian and Blake Countess, but they also brought in Eric Weddle, who is part of the next little bunch that the Rams signed, and they didn't go crazy in free agency, but they signed Clay Matthews, Eric Weddle, and Blake Bortles. Can you just talk about each one and what they bring to the table in your opinion?
Well, they're at varying stages of their career. So Matthews and Weddle, I think, are closer to the downside. Weddle is still a solid player. Matthews is more name than substance right now. Bortles is who he is. He's probably going to be a career backup from here on out. I don't think he's going to start anymore, but you never know in the NFL. But I think Jared Goff is a better player than Bortles. So at least that upgrades your QB2, because we have seen Bortles go out there and play well at times and can help you win games in the pinch. And I think that's all you really want out your QB2. But Weddle is a guy that's going to be valuable. He's going to be a starter. He's going to be a solid player. Matthews, I'm a little bit worried about because you don't know which Matthews you're going to get. And I feel as though if he was still that guy, then he wouldn't have been let go out of Green Bay.
Yeah, I agree. And that's something that we've talked about as well. There definitely is, I think, in my opinion, that question mark around Clay Matthews. He was such a great player in Green Bay for so many years, but lately he's been very inconsistent. And in my opinion, it worries me a little bit because I worry that he might bring that inconsistency to the Rams. But, sometimes it just takes, I think, a new team, maybe a new system, get in there, see what he can do. But definitely, I think is, Jake can echo off of this. There's quite a bit of concern around him.
Yeah. So with my biggest issue with Clay Matthews is, what does this mean for guys like Okoronkwo and, guys like, Trayvon Young and, some of, I would even say Samson Ebukam, because, really they've only committed 1 year to Dante Fowler. But I looked at that move and I felt like it's a 1 year deal. But it feels to me like it's kind of like for show. It's like kind of like a franchise tag where he's on a 1 year deal, but I feel like he's going to get, kind of extended, kind of in the middle of the season. But I mean, like with Clay Matthews, Emory, where do you see him kind of fitting in this defense? Is he going to be an edge guy? Is he going to be an inside backer next to Littleton? Or is he going to kind of be, a Swiss Army knife in that role where, Wade can kind of use him as a, just situational pass rusher as well as, just use him in both positions?
I think what you said at the end is going to be the biggest key. I think when you look at Clay Matthews right now and in conjunction with Wade Phillips, I feel like he's going to just utilize him across the second level wherever he needs him. Let's say this week you may need him to play edge rusher against Arizona. Next week you may need him to play inside and be a pseudo spy against Russell Wilson. So it all depends on the matchup, but I do think he'll give the Rams that flexibility. But I also agree with you as well. You don't want to bring in a guy that's on the downside, an aging veteran that's on the downside, and stunt the growth of young guys. Even a guy like Micah Kaiser, seeing some time on the inside. You don't want to stunt those young guys that you drafted. The second year in their system, now they're going to feel a little bit more confident. You're going to see them have outstanding preseasons, and now that's going to take a back seat because you brought in Clay Matthews.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jake kind of touched on this as well. His concern about the Clay Matthews signing was, what does that mean for guys like Okoronkwo or Trayvon Young and all that? And, speaking of those guys, what are your thoughts on last year's draft for the Rams? Because they picked up guys like John Franklin Myers, Ogbunia Okoronkwo, Joe Noteboom, John Kelly, Micah Kaiser. Do you see any of those guys stepping in as starting roles maybe this next season for the Rams, or are you not so optimistic?
I actually love what the Rams did in the draft the last 3 seasons. I think they've drafted extremely well, and to the point where their depth is phenomenal, which is why they're able to lose guys via free agency and the next guys step up and play well. You saw that take place at the receiver position. I think you're going to see that take place within the front seven. John Franklin Myers was a tremendous player coming out of Stephen F. Austin. He's going to see a more significant role. I think Okoronkwo is going to have the same thing. Lawler played well last year coming out of SMU. So I think you're going to see these guys take significant strides in year two. And it just goes back to what they've done over the last 3 to 4 years as far as drafting. There's a ton of talent. And it shows you that's the best and cheapest way to have your team consistent and successful is to draft well. And the Rams have definitely done that. So when you draft well, you not only get great talent, but you get cheap great talent. And that allows you to go out and pay guys like Aqib Talib and Ndamukong Suh the year before and take on those big contracts because you have so many young guys that are still on their rookie deals.
Yeah, we're talking about rookie deals, and, I completely forgot about coming in, but I do want to ask you, the Rams are really interested in bringing back Marcus Peters, on a long-term deal. This is his fifth-year option year, so he's around $8 million against the cap. I know some people wanted to get rid of him after one season. What are your thoughts on, bringing him back long-term, or do you kind of feel like, the Rams should hold out and maybe just check the free agency market when it hits them, or draft a corner early? I
would I like Marcus Peters, but I do think cornerback is going to be a day two priority for the Rams. And if you can grab a good one in round two, that'll be a good look, or round three at the latest. I do think the cornerback class is deep enough to where you can find good talent in round three, starting level talent in round three. So, but yes, you want to find another corner because whether you re-sign Peters or what you plan to do with Talib, you have to get guys in tow. And we've seen this play itself out over and over again. And the Rams cause this problems or give this problem to opposing teams. When you look at their receiving core, the Rams legitimately can be 6 deep at receiver, and you may only have 2.5 good corners. So you got to stockpile your secondary guys that can cover, that can take the ball away, and that can match up across the board.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of that and the draft and who do we take? What do you think that the Rams should do at 31 overall? Because there's definitely a lot of options for them. I think. Do you think they should trade down, maybe possibly trade up, or trade for an established player? What do you think would be the best move for the Rams at 31 overall?
I think because of how many people overlook nose tackle, they may be in prime position to get the best one and probably the only one in the class that's worth a first-round pick, in my opinion, and that's Dexter Lawrence out of Clemson. That'll be a great addition that would also help replace Ndamukong Suh, and it gets another premier talent on a rookie contract right there in the middle. So I would probably target Dexter Lawrence in round one if I were the Rams.
Yeah, and we've actually had a few prospects on this show, and one of them we definitely think is going to go in the first round. That's Dalton Reisner. What would you think about his fit? Kind of flying right in there at left guard to replace Saffold, and then maybe you move somebody like Noteboom to right guard, or you keep those two, and then say you take Blythe and you move him in at center. What would be your thoughts on that? I
kind of like what the Rams already have, man. I like Noteboom. I like Blythe. I like Demby as a developmental prospect coming out of Maine. That has some versatility too. So I kind of like the pieces you have there, and it kind of goes to what I was talking about earlier about the continuity. And if one unit is, exemplifies that and a need for that, it's the offensive line. And I think losing Saffold is huge, but you have guys that have been in your building, been in your program. Let those guys work themselves out. And again, probably because my own personal philosophy, I'm not going to, unless you're Orlando Pace, I probably would stay away from linemen in the first round, unless you are just by far just blowing away the competition. You have to be doing something ridiculous. You have to be a standout. And I'm a big Dalton Reisner fan. I have a pretty good grade on Reisner, but if I had to choose between Reisner and Dexter Lawrence, I'm going to choose Dexter Lawrence.
And kind of switching gears a little bit here, the Rams have met with quite a few safeties despite signing Weddle to a 2-year deal. Do you think that that's a position that the Rams should target in the draft, maybe drafting Weddle's replacement because Weddle is older and his contract is only 2 years? Or do you think that for now they should just stay put at the safety position?
It depends on what type of safety you're talking about. If you're trying to bring in another LaMarcus Joyner, then absolutely. A combo safety, we call it over here at Football Gameplan. So, you find yourself at pick 32, and you got guys that should still be on the board. Maybe a Darnell Savage is there, and that'll be a good LaMarcus Joyner type, or maybe a guy like Taylor Rapp if he's still around, or Monty Hooker out of Iowa, or some good combo safeties that would be right up there in the mix. Juan Thornhill is another one, guys that can play free and strong safety. So there's some options there. It all depends on how the board falls and who's going where and what you get a beat on who's going to go higher in round 2. That helps you make your decision at the end of round 1.
Yeah, for sure. And I think really this safety class is getting a little underrated. You brought me on to names like Monty Fenner from Towson, Karan Ramsey from Alabama State. So I've definitely looked at those guys. I love Will Harris out of Boston College. I think, his counterpart there, Lucas Dennis, is actually getting more buzz than him, but I really like the way Will looked at the Senior Bowl. Do you think that, maybe you grab Lawrence, in your opinion, you grab Lawrence in the first round. Do you think maybe somebody like, Evan Worthington makes sense, later in the draft at safety? Because, you have 2 years of Weddle, and it kind of gives you an opportunity to develop a safety, behind Weddle, and then, have him come in and start next to John Johnson when his time's up.
Yeah, you always want to find guys that you can, grow and develop within your program. Marvell Tell will be another one. Chris Johnson out of North Alabama was excellent at the Shrine Game. Those type of guys would be, you mentioned Worthington, he's another one. So you can get creative as you go toward the back end of the draft. You find guys that have cornerback experience that could transition to a safety. We've seen the Seattle Seahawks do this last year with the guy they drafted out of Oklahoma State, turned the safety into a corner, and you see teams do it the opposite way. Malcolm Jenkins is one that comes to mind right away, former corner turned safety. So, yeah, if you can take care of primary needs first, it allows you the ability and the flexibility to be able to be a little bit more creative in the back half of your draft.
And absolutely. And then, this kind of plays into this next question about the running back position, because the Rams, have signed Todd Gurley to a long-term deal, and they just re-signed Malcolm Brown. But do you think that the running back position is a position that they should target this draft?
Maybe, because you still have John Kelly, who was another very good draft selection by the Rams last year. So he's still in the mix, and I would say, yeah, you can find the back, but you want to probably find a back that gives you a little bit of what Gurley and Brown give you. These are bigger backs that do a good job of catching the ball. So you want to, maybe a guy like Alex Barnes out of Kansas State could be a target. To me, he reminds me a lot of James Conner, but I will put running back maybe lower on the list, because you still want to see what you have in John Kelly.
Yeah, I think the running back thing was really interesting, because I don't think people had that on the radar. And then, the whole Todd Gurley thing comes out with his arthritis, and I think people are kind of overreacting to that. And then I also think that, just hearing that they really like the FAU running back, Devin Singletary. They met with him twice. They've even gone out to FAU, and they've done like whiteboard work with him and everything. And then, of course, the private visit. It kind of put the running back position on the radar again. And really, I think if they go that route, I think, you look at somebody like Rodney Anderson, who I think could have been one of the best backs in this draft. For whatever reason, we talk about if he was healthy, he could have gone first round, but we never said that with Todd Gurley. So, I never know what to really say about that. But if Anderson's there, in the third or fourth round, I think the Rams might have to take a chance on. But what would be your thoughts on, maybe just best available Anderson falls there. Would that make sense?
I
for
would
the Rams?
be leery of Anderson. I like him as a back, and I've said this before. His situation kind of reminds me of Robert Smith, who played with the Minnesota Vikings. When he was coming out of Ohio State, he had a lot of these weird, freak, nagging injuries, and that caused him to fall in the draft. And the Vikings took him, and he was able to stay healthy a good stretch and be super productive for the Vikings. But those injuries are what derailed his career. And so, yes, you could take Anderson and hope that you get the 2017 version where he was just outstanding. But now, okay, is he going to be a guy that we're going to have to worry about? We're going to have the same conversation the following year because he missed time with some sort of freak injury. So, I would probably, if I were drafting Anderson, the talent itself would be round 2, but his background would have me wait till at least round 6.
What would be your roadmap for building the Rams up in the draft, assuming that they're done with their free agency acquisitions this year? Just because I'm curious to get your opinion on it, because a lot of people have different thought processes about who the Rams should take and when and what their biggest need is. But if it were up to you, what would you do if you were the Rams GM, and who would you target throughout the draft?
I would probably I look at the Rams, and I think they're strong at receiver, tight end. Those are places where, okay, non-negotiable. Anybody we bring in will probably be an undrafted free agent. So I wouldn't target a draft selection at those picks. Offensive line, you always want to bring in a tackle and a swing guy that can play guard and tackle. So I would probably target 2 players there. But my focus would probably be within the front 7 on the defensive side of the ball. Nose tackle, edge rushers, inside backers. You want to continue to stockpile depth and also get maybe 1 to 2 corners, and with the second corner being a guy that can be versatile, that can play safety, transition safety down the line, or maybe play a little bit of, outside corner, play slot corner. So you want to get versatility along the offensive line and in the secondary, but try to find some guys in the front 7 that could bring it.
Yeah, and, as the draft rolls along, obviously we see all sorts of, this guy's stock is rising, this guy's stock is falling. But I don't think anyone's stock seems to be falling more, at least on, draft Twitter and on, social media, all of that, than Ja'Kai Polite. And whether it's fair or not, it does sound like he's going to fall out of the first round. Do you think the Rams, seeing what they have right now, and, we did talk about, not wanting to, stunt these guys' growth, but if Ja'Kai Polite falls into their lap in round 3, you have to pull the trigger, right?
Yeah, you always want to. I know me personally, I will always bet on talent, and a lot of times you're gonna miss on some, and that's okay. But I'd rather miss swinging for the fence than watching the ball go right past me for a strikeout, considering that this is opening day, right? But
yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
But it's that's what I would do. But if he's there, yeah, you take him because you like what you saw on film, and you got to always remember, you're playing a football game, so you want to make sure these guys are good at doing the football thing and not the testing thing, and that's where a lot of teams pass up good talent.
Yeah, and speaking of talent, are there any sleepers for the Rams that you think they should target later in the draft and maybe into UDFA signing? Guys that you think might go unnoticed?
Quentin Bell, the pass rusher from Prairie View A&M, who just recently had his pro day. I want to say he's 6'3", about 238 or something like that, 6'4". He ran a 4.38. Jumped 41.5 inches, and broad jump 11.1, which is ridiculous for a defensive edge rusher, right? But when you dig into his story, you find out he was a former wide receiver. So that explains the speed, the explosiveness, all that stuff like that. But he is really quick off the ball, and you see a guy that has upside. He was outstanding this past year at Prairie View, who had a resurgence. I watched the Sam Houston State game and the Texas Southern game. He was dominant in those two, and those are two unique offenses where Sam Houston State throws the football all over the field, and you look at Texas Southern's a little bit of balance. You know, you're going to see some tight ends. You're going to see a little bit of up tempo, and so he was able to hold his own against both offenses. So that's one that, well, now because of his 40 and all those testing that I just mentioned, all those tests, he's probably going to get drafted. But that's probably a potential undrafted free agent guy. And I just mentioned Sam Houston State. Davion Davis, the receiver, is another one to keep an eye on. And also, if you're looking for a returner, Deontay Harris out of Assumption, I think is the best returner in the draft. He's 5'6", 175. I think he has the most kickoff returns or punt return touchdowns in college football. This dude is outstanding. When you watch his tape, he's fast in all directions, and the tape will look like it's sped up, but that's not. That's just how fast he runs, juxtaposed to how slow everybody else is around him. He played the NFLPA game, so those are some names that kind of fit what the Rams would probably be looking for in some undrafted guys.
Yeah, and then we'll wrap it up here. Just want to get your thoughts on, if you could really have anybody, say you're the general manager tomorrow for the Rams, and you got to find that linebacker to go next to Littleton. If you had to draft somebody, and it didn't matter what round, which linebacker would best fit next to Corey Littleton?
I say Troy Reader out of Delaware. Troy Reader out of Delaware or Trey Lamar out of Clemson. Both of those guys are your bigger inside backers that look the part, and they also play the part. I know Lamar is more of a run stopper, which is fine. People question his athleticism, but every time I look up on film, he's making a tackle, in a running game. And Reader, former Penn State guy, transferred to Delaware, just so fluid in space as far as like coverage is concerned, and doesn't miss an opportunity to catch a ball that's thrown his way. He has tremendous hands for a linebacker. He's 6'2", 6'3", about 245. So, Reader is an outstanding, underrated linebacker prospect, and I'm just a Trey Lamar fan because I feel like he plays the game the old school way, where linebackers that look to hit are the type of linebackers that I tend to like.
Absolutely, and he's definitely a very talented guy who I see going up pretty early on in the draft. And, first off, just thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been really cool to talk to you and get your insight into things. And it really means a lot to us.
No, I appreciate you guys having me on, man. This is always, a good time to talk, and, because you got the prospects graded, and, you've done your 7-round mock draft, so you pretty much have a good handle on all 32 teams. So it's good to talk about one specific team and try to find and fill needs for that team. So it was great to come and talk shop with you guys. I appreciate you guys having me on.
Oh, absolutely, Emory. You're always welcome on. It's a pleasure. Anybody that hasn't already, definitely check out Football Gameplan. If you have anything else, Emory, definitely plug that, because my listeners do, check out some stuff. Well, if you want to get a jump on
the NFL Stars of the Future, we started a new venture, the Football Game Plan 400. So you can go to footballgameplan400.com. That's our high school scouting, and you can check out our top 400 high school prospects that are entering college this year. So that's the class of 2019. And we are excited about that because we hit on a couple of high school guys before. Quick story. We did a pilot show podcast called Recruiting Roundup, and where we had high school prospects send us their film, and we would live scout and grade their film while they're on the line and give them our thoughts on their tape, strengths, areas of improvements, and best fit, And
That's awesome.
The one guy we interviewed, one of the guys we interviewed, he was a smallish offensive lineman, and but was great with his technique. And we was like, man, listen, if a coach is patient and lets you redshirt and they're going to put the weight on you, and when you add weight, you're going to be a monster because you got the technique. And he took our advice, and he was excited because he got on the show, and lo and behold, fast forward, that player was Chris Lindstrom. So
oh my God!
It was funny to break. We brought it up to him at the. He knew who I was when I ran into him at the Senior Bowl, And he was like, I appreciate the kind words that you gave. You know, it meant a lot. And, you know, it kind of motivated me because he was hearing at the time that, you know, he was too small. And, you know, Boston College saw something with him and he stuck with it. And I was like, man, look how it turned out for you. You know, we had another one where we did with linebacker that was, you know, people was like he should play safety and he needs to bulk up, and we was like, nah, he's actually a new age linebacker, and we was talking him through it, and it ended up being Jerome Baker. So that those two along with others kind of led us to the Football Game Plan 400. So go to footballgameplan400.com and check out what we've done with the high school prospects, and we just excited about that moving forward.
Yeah, that's awesome. Everyone listening should be sure to check that out. And it just sounds like really cool stuff that you've got going on. And I certainly will be looking at it, and I'm sure Jake will be as well.
Oh, yeah, 100%, Emory. That's awesome that you guys are doing that. I didn't even know you were doing that, so I will definitely be on the lookout for that as well, because I just started a Kansas Jayhawks podcast, so I'm going to need to, brush up on some recruiting since Les Miles is there now.
Full disclosure, my old college teammate is the one that's bringing those Louisianimals to Kansas, and Tony Hall. So, good job out there recruiting for those Jayhawks, man.
Oh yeah, no, that he's phenomenal. They are just putting together. People aren't noticing it, except I obviously think you noticed it, but they'll be on the map soon. They got a football coach to do it. So, Emory, it was a total blast. You're the man, and I'll definitely keep a lookout for that because that's such a great idea.
Oh, it's already out, man. Just go check it out. Footballgameplan400.com, and I appreciate you guys having me on the show.
Of course. Thank you so much.